Yes, good morning, Dre.
Good morning, Angie.
Yes, so welcome for anyone that is tuned in. This is Angelina. I am here with Mr. Jose Dre Martin, one of our Caffeine and Connections members. This is our Caffeine and Connections highlight number three. So I
Glad to
guess
be here.
some people might
Glad to be
consider
here.
this episode three. I'm calling it highlight number three. That's how I want to the viewers to know what we're doing here. So yeah, excited that we were able to have this time. So what we're gonna do is just talk about you.
Okay.
I
Okay,
want
I'm ready.
everybody. I want everyone to know who Dre Martin is or Jose Martin. So let's talk
Oh,
about that because we know
yeah, let's
Jose
just start with that
Martin,
one.
Dre. Let's cover that basis first so people won't be confused. So, for one, what is your preference in introduction?
My preference is Dre, but let
Okay.
me let me preference that by saying um, I'm in a client-facing business, what I do for a living, and not everyone is comfortable with Dre.
Okay.
It brings its own set of preconceived notions from Dre. So on the other side, you have Jose, likewise, and it's like the which one is worse, Dre or Jose? I'm being honest. Which one is worse? Now
I
I name
mean,
my kids, and I'm just gonna be honest. Caroline, Christian, Cooper. Think about those names. Other than they all start with a C, they're all very neutral, right? The reality is that when people hear Jose, they think, and I've gotten it, and it's just the country we live in, it's the town we live in. Are you Dominican? No,
mhm.
I'm from Georgia. I'm not. I wish I could be Dominican or something sometimes if it is to my advantage. But no, I'm not. Did I play baseball? Yeah. Are you a Dominican baseball? No, I'm not. Right. That's just where we are. So I grew up in rural South Georgia, and I'm a little bit long in the tooth. So I'll say when I grew up in the '80s, in rural Georgia, there was only two types of people: white and black. Not
Mhm.
Spanish, not Arab, not German, white American, black American.
Right.
So to hear a name like Jose is like a lot for them. They
So
were
who
so
who named
confused.
you?
My grandmother named me
Okay.
after because she's a travel woman. She spent some time in California and she loved Jose Feliciano. Feliz
Ah.
Navidad, Hotel California, all those good things, right? Good music. And I'm a fan of music. I love music. And I'm blessed that she did name me, after a musician at least. But
Right.
grandma, she'd have chosen something a little bit more neutral. So she did that. And growing up, people would call me everything. Joseph, Jose. Um, People that have been knowing me my whole life still would do that a lot because they don't understand the J and the H sound and all that stuff. It's very, very difficult for them.
Mhm.
So in the '80s, big fan. Probably shouldn't have been listening, but we listened to a lot of NWA. We listened to
Mhm.
a lot of early Snoop Dogg, like
Mhm.
on deep cover Snoop Dogg, not doggy style Snoop Dogg. So when Snoop was a teenager, and he would always, and he still does it now, and Flizzy and Drizzy, the fly. So he would do that all the time. And I used to go by Jazzy J because I do everything to shorten my name from being just Jose. And some kind of ways, one of my homeboys, he blended the Jazzy J and we were rapping and Jizzy and he said, "Oh, you should be the Drizzy." And it
Ah.
started with the Drizzy.
Okay.
And who is the Drizzy? That's Dr. Dre.
Mhm.
And so I
Mhm.
became Dre. And
That
that
is
was about the sixth
interesting.
grade. I became Dre, and that was it. The rest is history. All through high
So
school
Dre's
and
not
college.
even your middle name, Andre or anything.
No,
That's the
no.
nickname.
My middle. Who did I say she named me after? She named me after Jose Feliciano. So they tried to name me Jose Feliciano, but being the Georgian, not as traveled and read as many others, they couldn't spell Feliciano in the hospital. So they named me Jose Franciose. My middle name is Franciose.
That is amazing.
Crazy, right? So I
Wow.
tried, and so here's the kicker. Finish that out. So my grandmother's husband name was Frank. And I said, Franciose, Francis. Most Francis are Frankie. I said, why don't I just change my name to Frank? I
Okay.
talked to my dad about it. I talked to family. They were like, "We're cool with it," because they didn't know it. My dad died when he was a young boy, so he actually didn't know his father. And everybody was cool with it. My grandma had already passed when I was thinking about changing my name to Frank, so she would have been fine with it because she wasn't here anymore. Um, but I really contemplated Angie because, um, I worked as an engineer for a while and it was fine. People called me Jose and that was fine, but I didn't really, and people have a lot of issues with the South and the Midwest and all these different things, but I didn't realize that people were really partial or prejudiced towards names until I got to the Northeast.
Mm, mm.
Because in the Northeast we have a high Latino population, and so by default they assume that I was Latino of some descent.
Right.
Now, I don't know how my statistics in front of me right now, but I can tell you just based on what I know from working in the industry, if there's any one population there's less of on Wall Street than blacks, is Latinos.
Yeah.
So having a name Jose Martin doesn't bode well on your application when you're applying to a job on Wall Street. I'm just keeping it real.
I can imagine.
So just be Dre and be cool, right? And I tell people all the time. I mean, I will know I've arrived when I'm like Beyonce. You don't even have to say Martin. You just say Dre. Oh, that guy Dre. Oh, I know him. Okay. And I say, don't even worry about the rest of it. Just call me Dre.
That's
And
awesome.
so that was all cool until I started advising.
Mm-hmm.
So when you pick up the phone and you call a client, it may or may not look like you, and you say, "Hi, this is Dre Martin." You're losing. You pick
Yeah.
up the phone and you say, "Hi, this is Jose Martin." You're probably still losing.
Wow.
So it's a
So,
it's a
I mean,
And I
you said
tested this with other advisors. I
yeah.
say, 60-year-old advisor. I say, if I called you and I said, hi, this is, he said, I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't do business with
So do you have a nickname? Do you go by Frank? Do you say Frank or do you
you.
say Joe? Do you
So
shorten it?
I worked at JP Morgan for a while, and I love my time at JP Morgan. But while I was working at JP Morgan, I said, if John Pierpoint Morgan can be just JP, so can Jose Franciosi Martin be just JF. So
Mm,
for a while, I became just JF Martin.
okay.
And I floated that for a while, and it was fine, but it didn't feel good to me. And in the spirit of Connie Chan, I said, I'm not covering any longer. I'm just gonna be who I'm gonna be. Because
Yeah.
Connie, she covered, right? Her name is not Connie, right?
Um,
But on the news, she had to be Connie.
right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, in this day and age, if a person can accept Jose Dre Martin or Jose Martin, that's a them problem, not a you problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I'm glad to have Jose Dre Martin here. Dre, you joined Caffeine and Connections, I think the end of 2024, if I'm not mistaken.
The beginning, yeah, in towards the beginning of the year. Yeah,
Yeah, because I think Casey said you joined the Saturday Morning Investor Group
in
um,
January. Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
January.
yeah,
So we were trying to figure out that timetable. I was like, okay, so maybe that he joined us, but I think it was right away, right? Like
yeah,
you were here on a Friday, you were there on Saturday,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
rest is history.
yeah.
So that's awesome.
It
It's
is. It's
definitely been a
been.
pleasure having you a part of the group. I mean, obviously, we're like family now. The connections that you have made and those that have met you, I think, has been really a blessing. And I'm excited for those who are listening to this conversation to hear about those connections. I want to talk about those connections that you've made a little bit later on, but we still want to find out more about Jose Martin or Dre,
Yeah,
right? We want to hear
yeah,
about your backstory. You mentioned a couple keywords that I'll throw out there. You mentioned advising, you mentioned Wall Street. So I think that those listening, if they didn't know what you did, they probably kind of have somewhat of an idea if they don't know
yeah,
already, right?
yeah,
But before we even get into that, and you also mentioned that you're from Georgia, right?
yeah,
But you also mentioned that something about the Northeast. So we know that you've made some transitions.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about the backstory, right? We heard about your name and where that came from. I want to know about where you're from. I already know about Georgia, and I don't really know about the part of Georgia that you're from,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
do want to hear the story about how you, like, where you're from and how you got to where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And like a lot of us, although we may not realize, so for the people watching and people watching this later, go check this. I'm from across the tracks, and if you don't know the significance of living across the tracks, you should go study it and think about it. So if you don't live across the tracks, you live on the east side. And if you don't know the significance of living on the east side of a city, you should definitely go do some research on that. There's a lot of studies out there, and I won't get into it because I want to tell people about me. So I'm not from the east side. And you can think about all the east side, East LA, East St. Louis, east of anywhere. Typically the worst side of town. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I'm from across the tracks. And across the tracks in Homerville, Georgia, little town, the center of a big county, Clinch County, which I think land wise is the third or fourth largest county in Georgia. So here
What
you
part
have the
of Georgia is
largest
that? Is that South Georgia, North
South
Georgia?
Georgia,
South.
South
Okay.
Georgia. So South Georgia between Ware County and Lowndes County. So between Waycross and Valdosta, Georgia,
Okay.
about hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours from Jacksonville, in
Gotcha.
that eastern corner, Okefenokee Swamp.
That's near
Um,
Blake. Is that near what's that? Baxley? Is that far from
Yeah,
Baxley?
not far from Baxley, and our Baxley story because my grandma who named me from Baxley. So
Okay.
it all ties together. Funny you mentioned that. Um, but a little bit distance from Baxley, more closer to Waycross and Valdosta, Lakeland, those type of towns,
Gotcha.
Douglas, Georgia, some of those places. Um, and the interesting thing about it, it's got all this land. It's a big timber industry place. That's why the land exists, and rightfully so. You have to have your industry, and if you have a bunch of land and you have a lot of trees, then somebody's getting rich or making money and getting wealthy off the trees. They grow timber, they cut it down, they sell it, so forth and so on. Good industry, right? The downside of that industry is that not a lot of other industries when you have a lot of land but no industry.
Mm-hmm.
The town's roughly 3,000 people, so you can get how small it is. One traffic light. Growing up when I was there, always they have a couple now. They expand the highway to make a throughway between Waycross and Valdosta. But when I grew up there, they had one traffic light, no movie theater, no skating rink, no anything. It literally had nothing for a kid. No arcade, no anything. We used to hang out at the pool hall. My stepdad was a part of a men's club. He tried to open a pool hall, and drinking beer, so forth. We hung out there because they had pool and they had a few arcade games. And then there was a little quick shop that had Mario and Mario Brothers, and we hung out there like quarters after quarters. And there was only one game. It's like the whole town of everybody standing waiting in line. But that was kind of the childhood, right? Because you don't have anything. We excelled at sports. I was a big sports guy because that's in a town like that. People joke about it, but it is true. All you have to do is to play ball, and we play ball. I think we're at 21 state championships and counting right now. Somebody have to check me on that, but the number's significant, and that's been over time, going back to 1988.
Oh wow.
Um, Technically 1976, one of the girls' basketball teams. So, but most of those were won from '86 in baseball through now. Those 20 something state champions across all sports: girls basketball, men's basketball, football, baseball, you name it. So we're a powerhouse, right? I mean, there's no other way to describe it. And it's the only thing that connects us.
Well, you got to have
Uh,
something.
yeah, it's the only thing that connects us. We had our challenges. Remember, I stayed on one side of the track, so it historically has always been a very segregated little town. It never got out of that segregated South type of mantra. Um, when I was growing up, I knew of one or two people, black people, that had a home. And I'm not talking about like a shack. When I was growing up, there were literally still, it was called green quarters, slave quarters there. and people actually lived in them.
Wow.
And people had no indoor plumbing. In 1994, people
Wow.
had no indoor plumbing in Georgia. They went outside to the bathroom,
To
and
the
it was still
outhouse.
called green quarters,
So
as
was it
if
like an outhouse they had to go to use the
yeah,
bathroom?
it was the outhouse, the bathroom in the outhouse,
Wow.
and it was the same former slave quarters. Um, so that's where I grew up, and for most part, most people didn't know any different, and I didn't really know any differently, to be honest. I thought I was smart. Most people around me thought I was smart, but I hadn't traveled anywhere. I hadn't been anywhere. As far as I had been was on the bus to Alabama. My mom's originally from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I would go to Opelika, Auburn, Alabama, work on cars with my granddad when I was young, and occasionally I would come to Tampa. And I've talked
Okay.
about on this show how Tampa had a connection to me because my dad moved to Tampa pretty much as soon as I was born,
Okay.
right? Um, I was in Tampa when Marvin Gaye died. It's kind of one of those memories in my head as a young kid, right?
Yeah.
Where were you when Marvin Gaye got shot? Oh, that was in Tampa, actually. Um, and so I spent a little time there because my dad and his brothers and his sisters, pretty much the whole Martin clan, they moved out of Homerville, moved to Tampa,
Okay.
right? One came, the other came. They kind of followed each other there. So I'd only been two places, Tampa and Opelika, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Now my mom, and I guess it's okay to still fault my dad because I still do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a grown man now, so we have a good relationship. But when I was a younger man, we did not have a good relationship because I saw things through the eyes of a young person.
Right.
Um, and he would say he was a child, and I would say so was my mom. So my dad was about 17, I think, when I was born. But my mom was 15 and had literally just turned 15.
When you
She
were
uh,
born.
she was 15 when I was born. She had turned
Mm-hmm.
15 2 months prior. So she literally was 14 while she was carrying me. The joke
Wow.
is, I turned flips. I was athletic, and I got a lot of athletic ability and stuff like that. But she said, you know why? Because I was still cheering. She was still cheering, and she said I was still turning flips and everything
Oh
when I was
my
pregnant with you,
goodness.
right? Because she was
Wow.
14, right?
Wow.
So she cheered and she did everything she normally would have done as a 14-year-old child while she was pregnant with me. Um, so that growing up in that situation, my grandmother who named me, she stepped in, she helped a lot. But my mother still had to go to high school. She's like a freshman. She had to go 3 more years. Not as a couple more years. She had to kind of like go to high school. So I kind of stayed with other people and I stayed with my grandmothers, and they kept me for a while and so forth. But I know those images from pictures and not that I remember the details of it, but I can remember being in Alabama because my mother ended up graduating high school in Alabama, and I was still in Georgia with my grandmother, and my dad's mom. Um, but beyond that, as I school and started to realize what was going on, so I had another brother, and I actually never had two more brothers. By the time my mom was 19, she had three kids. I had two
Wow.
more
Okay.
brothers. And most people say, well, you're from this side of the track in this little backwoods town, and it is, and it largely still is, to be honest. I know a couple people houses. I knew people who lived in slave quarters still. And we lived in the projects, but it's not projects like in the city, but it's not great, right? Right. Um, and people who didn't live in the projects lived in homes that were honestly should have been torn down, or
Right.
they lived in trailers. So you're
Mm.
kind of classic, and then people could stereotype, but it wouldn't be a stereotype if it wasn't true at some point, and it's
And
still
this
true.
is still on the east side, right? The other side of the tracks.
It's from the other side of the tracks, man. This is exactly how it is. So that was me growing up, but we never wanted for anything. It's a funny thing though. So we have this teenage mom. She started working at sewing factory and things like that when they still existed. And that went away. She started working at the local factory they make like gasoline cans, coffee cans, a big business. Got bought by a company in Ohio recently. But I knew it as Brockway Standard. And the big orange and red gasoline cans. They made those from
Mhm.
Little Homerville, Georgia. And so when I see those in the coffee cans and stuff, that's what they made. A lot of sharp metals and real work in the factory.
Right.
She and my aunt. So they worked there, and because we lived in the projects, they're not very big. Sometimes you get a 3 bedroom. For whatever reason, I don't know why we lived in a 2 bedroom. But living in a 2 bedroom was interesting because
Wait, how many of y'all were in the two
I'm about
bedroom?
to tell you how many. I'm getting there. Oh, I'm getting there. You're gonna be like, oh, hold on, wait, what's going on here? Um, it was. She's gonna kill me, but it was a 2 bedroom.
Yeah.
My mom and my aunt, and they're 20s now, each with 2 and 3 kids. So it was 5 of us kids. My
Okay.
mom and my aunt, my grandmother and her boyfriend, and then occasionally my cousin from Philly would come down and stay with us like 6, 7 months at a time. So at any given point, it was 6 kids. So how do we make that work? We used to sleep on a rollaway bed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like when you get in a hotel, you fold it
Yep.
up and you put it away and you roll out. Well, a rollaway bed is like a twin. So
Mm-hmm.
we slept 2 on 2 kind of thing, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and then somebody slept with my mom and then my aunt, and then somebody slept with my grandmother, and so that's how 6 kids, 4 on the rollaway bed, sleeping 2 on 2, paired like that, and then one person with my mom, and that was rollaway beds in the same room, my mom, my aunt. So in the room itself, it was 7 of us in the room, and
And they're not going
then
to kill you. This is part of the story. This is part of the journey. Like you have to look back in order to move forward. That's the whole
yeah.
purpose, right?
Yeah,
You have to
yeah. So
like yeah.
and then one cousin will alternate with my grandma and her boyfriend. So let me say I had a lot of wet nights because some of my cousins were very young, and so
They
they
used to
still
be in the
peeing in the
bed.
bed. So that was the
Mhm.
worst mattress in the world, boy, because it was always wet, and we were
Yeah.
always wet, and that was the worst thing. But it was interesting. It was interesting time, and I always wonder, and I often wonder now, like why we live sleeping on a rollaway bed and in this small little place. Well, there wasn't a lot of housing, and there wasn't, in the '80s there was one little bank in town, and probably similar to what happened in the '50s and '60s and '70s with redlining and things like that. They weren't giving out mortgages for you to do what with it? Have a house built? Like no one was coming and building housing, right? For you to have an opportunity to buy or rent to own or anything like that. So that's how you live.
On that side of the tracks, because it's probably on the other side of the tracks may have been a little
It was
bit
nice.
different.
Yo,
Right.
yes, it was very nice. Very
Right.
nice. Very nice brick homes. A lot of nice home neighborhoods, subdivisions, so to speak, and they had to share trailers and stuff as well, but like they would, but people had actually houses.
Right.
They
That
actually
with
had houses
plumbing.
with plumbing, right? And so, like that's why I said the only thing that brought us together was the sports because it was interesting to have such a difference in the way you live, and it would be remiss of me in not mentioning what it's called. So it's called P Ridge, and we call it the Ridge. That's where we live, right? And everybody I knew, um, they pretty much lived on the Ridge, or they lived in one of these off little obscure little location, a little place called Happyville. And they were actually housed in Happyville actually. Happyville, but Happyville was a little bit mixed, and we had a little. Before we moved to the project, we actually did live in a little brick. I think it was about 700 square feet, just a small, all right, a little place over in Happyville. And I was about 3 or 4 when that was going on. I remember standing out in front of my grandmother, her boyfriend owned a little nightclub or whatever, and that didn't last long. But when we lived at the house across the street in Happyville, so I
Mhm.
lived in Happyville, and I lived in a place called Cuttings, which was all trailers, except in a couple houses, and also a little bit more mixed, meaning 80% black, 20% white. They have a few homes, so forth and so on. But
So,
um,
so Dre, let me ask you though, right? So this is your childhood. I am curious as to when you moved from Homerville or moved out of Homerville. Was it for the purpose of education?
college, yeah,
And what
yeah,
college did you go to?
University of Alabama,
Okay.
University of Alabama. So I went back to Alabama. My mom's from Alabama. So I was a student. I was a kid who never missed a day of school through all this.
Mm-hmm.
And my family, like I said, had it not been for, and I'll fast forward through some of the details, but um, in that 2 bedroom, what made it even more remarkable, we sold drugs.
Mm-hmm.
The family did.
Okay.
So we had 4 adults working, and we were selling drugs, and we still lived in a 2 bedroom project. But Christmas were nice. We had like three,
Christmases were
four
nice.
bicycles. We had a 3-wheeler outside. It's like a typical black family now. Like you see, like Mercedes and stuff in the drive. Like my mom had a Camaro. My grandmother had a Camaro. Like the Z28s, convertible T-tops. We had anything you could imagine.
You see that though. I see it like in the projects now. Like, in the projects, they have what, $46 for rent they might spend, but have Mercedes Benz, Land Rovers, Range Rovers. Yes, in the
So
yeah.
that was us. So we did that, and when we finally moved out of the projects, we did eventually buy a house. My mom got married to my brother's dad, my youngest brother's dad. We moved out to the Cuttings. We had a house. It lasted about 8 months because crack took it, because he became
Mm.
addicted, and that's when we moved to Tampa for the summer for a little while, which lasted about 3 months because my dad never came to see me, and then we moved back to Homerville. And then I just kind of continued doing what I did. I made all A's. I was an honor student. I was in gifted. Um, I turned down a scholarship to go to any HBCU I wanted to go to because I wanted to go to Alabama.
Why
Um,
Alabama, of all the places, of all the schools, with you being a straight A student?
yeah, University of Alabama, it felt like home because my mom was from Alabama. I like the environment. I believe in, even today, so I do have kids, and we're going to get to that point, but
Yep.
I believe in a well-rounded background, well-rounded. And for me, the University of Alabama was as well run as you could get. Great athletic program, history, any major you could think of, beautiful campus, like people from every country. Remember, I only knew white and black people.
That's
For
what I
me
was
to
going to
step on
ask. Like,
campus,
where did that mindset come from of wanting that well-rounded environment, knowing where you came from?
yeah, I actually don't even know. I mean, it was always kind of self driven and self motivated because the downside of imagine a little town like Homerville, I didn't know anyone who had went to college, black males, other than a few that went to like community college for basketball and things like that. But no one had ever gone to a major. I know no one who had graduated from a major university, a black person.
Okay.
Um, I guess the principal at the elementary school technically would have, but I didn't feel like I knew him, Mr. Cross. He was an old guy, but I didn't put it together. He would have had to go to college to become a principal. But in in my space, I didn't feel like I knew anyone who had ever gone to college even.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I skipped when I was growing up, and I would spend those. So my grandfather, my mother's father. Obviously, if you have a child at 14 and 3 by 19, you don't have a father. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and she didn't have one. So he was an absent father. Um, but what he did allow, he owned a shop, mechanic shop. He grew up in a family of mechanics, and mind you, my mother's father's paternal side of very educated
Your
in
mother's
Alabama.
paternal side, the side that you really
Yeah,
didn't know because you
no,
didn't know her.
very educated. Yeah, very smart.
Yeah.
Rumor has it, let my aunt tell it, that my grandfather was the smartest person that she knew, and he was a genius. Now,
Wow.
given um, that I'm fairly smart, and just give me one second.
Uh-oh. You
Okay,
went
and
out.
so
Your sound went out.
given sorry, I had to have a pause break, but my son's trying to get on video games. I don't want to hear him in our interview
That's
screaming
okay.
about somebody shooting somebody on the Xbox. Um, and so this is a 16-year-old, and he
It's
doesn't know
okay. We're
shooting video
live,
either.
so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so my paternal side of my mother's family was very smart. My grandfather dropped out of school 6th grade, but this guy was for all intents and purposes actually was brilliant. He was a brilliant guy, and I guess he probably dropped out because he thought the school couldn't teach him anything. So he was
Mm.
not the youngest, but all his brothers either had gone to the military or gone to college. Definitely all his sisters went to college. Every last one of them, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, different schools or whatever, right? Um, But my point is telling the story is that the reason Alabama, my family was in Alabama to some extent.
Okay. Yeah.
My mom, my father's side of the family in Tampa, but again, he wasn't around, so I didn't feel as connected to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had cousins in Montgomery. I had aunt in Montgomery. I had people in Opelika, Auburn, Alabama, and it just felt like going home to me. My mom graduated high
Yes.
school in Alabama, and then lo and behold, I have this multifaceted university, very broad, very diverse. Now I get to see Indian people and Jewish people and all these different things, right? And that's what I could have went to the HBCU, and what would I've seen? Kind of more the same, in my view, right?
Right.
I grew up around all black people. I didn't need to go there to school. That wasn't going to help me to the next level, right? In terms of where I wanted to go, it
And
would
that was
help
your
me that
level of
I,
consciousness at that
yeah,
time too.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And to boot, it was 1994. I wanted to study engineering, and that was a
Gotcha.
key factor. I wanted to be a computer engineer. We were on the cusp of the .com.
Yes.
I want to
Yeah.
be a computer engineer. I spent all those summers in Opelika with my grandfather, back to the story, working on cars. I learned everything, how to rebuild alternators, how to weld gas lines, how to do everything. And I said, okay, all right, I made all A's. I never missed a day of school. I think I'm probably saying I'm a mathematician. I can see trends and numbers and spot things. I made 100 in physics from a German college professor. I'm probably pretty capable and well equipped to go to college and major in engineering. So that's what I
Wow.
did.
Awesome. That's impressive too. Especially, and it's good that you had that person that was your grandfather that was teaching you all that with the cars.
Yeah, so he taught me. Really, his assistants taught me. He cheated
Okay.
me, so he didn't pay me, and I don't know if that was a lesson. But I worked one summer, and he decided he wasn't going to pay me for the summer, not because he was the lessons, because my grandfather was cheap. Um,
But
so
you
my
did, it sounds like you gained from that because you learned probably more about yourself, the things you were capable of doing.
yeah, so my uncle paid me for the summer, and then I was crazy, and I went back another summer, and I made sure he paid me weekly the next time. But he thought he could take advantage. I was 13 or something when I first went, and so he thought I could take advantage of this kid. No, he's dead now, but
You were probably just as smart as he was, right? Like maybe that's where you got all that high intelligence from.
yeah, he was a pretty smart guy. He was pretty smart.
So you studied engineering, computer engineering.
Yeah, .com era. Graduated. Took my first job, and I'll speed it up. I took my first job in Chicago because again, I'm a little boy from South Georgia. I need to spread my wings. So I go from one step up to this multinational university. I learn a lot. I see a lot of people. I do a lot of different things. That wasn't good enough. I had a job offer in Huntsville. I was like, I'm already in Alabama. Yes, I could go work at NASA and do all that stuff. So it was working
Uh-huh.
with a company that works on the missile defense program. So pretty big stuff. But they
Mm-hmm.
said, and this is a true story, and even my wife doesn't believe this story, but this is a true story.
Okay.
So, and you can quote my man Wesley Harris. He had offer too, right? We went to school together at Alabama. We both went and interviewed at this company called Teledyne Brown. Look the company up. One government contractor involved in the missile defense program.
Mm-hmm.
So they told us, okay, we're gonna make your offer. Right, great. I had done co-ops and stuff at IBM as a student and stuff, so I was well equipped. I had experience. I had work. I already proven you could be from anywhere and go do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, to a large extent. And but they said, well, you need top secret clearance. You're going to be working on the country's missile defense program.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, uh-oh, that's not going to work for me.
Why not?
Because I lived in a home at an address that they wanted to collect, and that address was a
Oh,
part of a Georgia Bureau of Investigation
I
big
gotcha.
drug bust.
Well, yeah. Well, so what
And
happened? Look, I
and
want to
so
know
I
what
had to,
happened.
I turned the offer down. I took a different offer in Chicago,
Okay.
and because I didn't want to risk that something in my past I had nothing to do with. I was a kid,
Right.
what and I couldn't lie. Have you ever been in yes. Do you
Yeah,
know
they look
anybody
at
in
that
the felon?
address.
Yeah.
They'll find that
Yeah.
address and
Do you
yeah,
know? Have you ever lived with anybody who's a felon? Yes. Right, like that, and had nothing to do with me really.
yeah.
Um, it was my aunt's boyfriend and my grandmother's boyfriend, people who were not even blood related to me. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So that's
um,
what got you to Chicago.
got me to the Windy City. Got
Okay.
me to the Windy City. So I was young. Windy City, had no experience in corporate America. I love Chicago, but it was beyond that now. The dynamics had changed. Now I'm in corporate. I had never known a person in a corporate job. I had no one to turn to for advice. I didn't know what was going on in terms of the nuances, the dynamics of being in that environment. It just was, that part was new. I knew how to do the work, and I was smart, and I could go out, and the guy took me under his wing and so forth, and we did a lot of good work together. And I did big thing my first year. I was like in all these companies, exporting good, Peapod, and doing all this magnificent stuff. But internally, the culture of the company was such that it was, I took it as offensive because again, I have very sensitive ears to things and that sound prejudiced or racist or whatever. And the guy who hired me kind of got replaced early on. A new guy came in. I'll never forget it. This is the life lesson that kind of emboldened me and strengthened me to now.
Mm.
He basically said something along the lines of, you shouldn't be asking for more money. You should be happy what you're getting. This is good enough for you, son. It's kind of the way he was saying it to me, right? Just be happy with what you're getting, right? Needless to say, a month later, I was out of there. See ya.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that was smart of you to get out of there instead of being stuck. Because somebody that's new and young would have been like, okay, yes, sir.
yeah. No, I felt like I was working hard. I was doing a lot of what the senior guys were doing, and I wasn't asking for a lot. But you're not going to tell me be happy with what you're getting,
Right.
right? And so I went from there into wireless engineering, moved to Kansas City. So you've heard me
Look
tell
at you. You were a
KC,
little bit of a trotter going
yeah,
from
you heard me
state
say
to state.
KC and so forth. I lived in Kansas City for a while, and I did. It was such a beautiful place, and it was also eye opening to me because I thought it was, not to be a stereotypical person, I thought it was Wizard of Oz, wind and straw people. But I got there, and it was beautiful, and it was nice, and it was, and I was very happy with that, right?
Okay.
And so that was a great experience. Again, giving me a little bit of different flavor of what it was like. Now I didn't stay there long. I stayed there about a year, and I was
Mm-hmm.
working at Sprint. But the opportunity presented itself to work at Verizon, and it
And
was the Can
wait,
You Hear Me Now and
let's back
all
up a
that.
little bit though. So you worked in Kansas City at Sprint, just like our previous highlight,
Yeah, can't see it.
Casey.
We chat on that. We talk
That
about
is
that all the time.
crazy. Like, what a
Yeah.
coincidence. I wonder if y'all like cross paths at some point.
Oh, and she was at Sprint, and I was at Sprint PCS on the wireless side.
Oh, you're on the
But
PCS side. Okay.
yeah, so I
Okay.
was doing the wireless test. We're actually on the black box program that goes in the airplane because Sprint had that contract that
Mm.
produced and provide all the wireless and the wireless data services. So, again, very early on, I was already on very critical stuff. I had a chance to work on missile defense. I'm on the black box program, and I was like, okay, man,
What year was all this?
this was early 2000s.
Okay. I just was trying to
Yeah,
match it up.
no,
I'm like,
it was before we even had data on our phones. Actually,
yeah. I
and I
mean,
tell
because
people,
was that
I
around
help.
the time where cellular you had to like with Sprint you had to like free calls after 7 and until
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay,
I was on the wireless data. My mission in life was to get you internet on your phone. That
okay.
was my mission in life, right? I
Wow.
worked as a wireless data engineer, and we did not have SMS and text message and internet on our phones. And so, um, you know, I saw the convergence of what we are now
Hmm.
happening 20 years ago. And when I tell people that, I was like, yeah, I worked in the lab, man, at Sprint PCS in the wire as a wireless data engineer. It was like 5 of us. It was like a research
Wow.
lab. Like
That's
it
cool.
was heavy stuff. It wasn't like I'm not some no Joe Schmo like just throw around. Like I've worked on some critical stuff. And
That's a evolution. You've seen the evolution of it.
yeah, exactly. And I went from there to Verizon and then to AT&T. So I worked at all the major carriers.
Mm.
So when people ask me all the time, which carriers, I always had an opinion. Now it's changed a lot now with Spectrum and things like that. But I always felt like even though I worked at AT&T, Verizon was the best because I knew how
Hmm.
the network was built,
Okay. Yeah.
and I
And you
think
were
I was
part of that movement.
well placed
Mhm.
to have an opinion. So I moved to Detroit. While in Detroit, I went to grad school.
Okay.
While in Detroit, my first two boys were born.
Okay. Your oldest too.
The oldest two boys were born.
Okay.
Detroit was good, but Detroit was bad.
What year was this?
This is 2001, 2001,
Okay, one.
2002.
Okay.
It was sad. It was depressed. It was
Mm-hmm.
auto industry was in the dump, and it was 8 Mile, Eminem, 8 Mile, the movie 8 Mile. It was just like the burned down houses. It was, and here I go again, not in South Georgia, but where am I? I'm in Detroit, and what do I see again? A division. 8 Mile, south of 8 Mile, east of everything else. Detroit's east of the metro area. It's on the river. It's as far east as you can go in the Detroit metro area. It's in the city of Detroit in downtown Detroit. Everything to the west, nice. Suburbs,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, right? Mansions, the whole bit, right? So my area, not because of my color, I put that in air quote, was Detroit, the city of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
While my colleagues had other areas, let's just say that. I
Yeah.
didn't mind. I learned a lot about the city of Detroit because I did drive testing. I was out in the field. I did a lot building a network, right? But it was depressing.
Yeah.
And after a while, it got to me because it was sad.
Where
You
did
know,
you go to? Where'd you get your grad? What's
Wayne
grad?
State University in
Oh,
Detroit.
yeah.
So let me talk about mistakes in my life. Um, my first marriage, my boy's older mother,
Mm-hmm.
getting married was a mistake. All right, I'll leave it at that.
I
But
don't know. We might have to have a part two to this conversation so we can understand what the mistake was. That might be the relationship version of caffeine and connections.
yeah, no, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. But I was young, fatherless. I had no guidance, not just in corporate marriage relationships.
Yeah.
I've never seen what a good black man even looks like. All I saw was drug dealers, drug addicts, and people who leave people. Right?
Yeah.
That's all I knew. My grandfather, my father, my stepdad, my mom, my grandmother's boyfriend, all of them
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
Bad.
We definitely have to have a part two to this
They
because
were
there's
all
so
bad. They were
we,
all bad. I'm ain't gonna sugarcoat it. They
we
were
need to,
all bad.
but we gotta visit that part of the conversation because that's so important for our
Now it
people to
is
understand.
important. Actually, I'm gonna write a book about it so I can really call it. I used to call it the Made Man, but I do want to tell that story, and I want to get into the details of patterns I see, even in me, even in my brother who had a different father who still he behaves like my father, although his father and my father were different, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
something about it innate. He behaves like my grandfather, who he never even knew, right? And he still does it today. My brother's a little bit too old to behave still like what he's behaving.
It's
But anyway,
the
yeah,
cycles that haven't been broken,
yeah.
So, but yeah, that's again, we need to have a
Yeah.
part two.
So I didn't want to be a part of the cycle. So I married my boy's mother, and that was a
Mm-hmm.
mistake because I
Okay.
hated her. Not hate is
Oh,
a strong word. I didn't like her,
yeah,
and she knew it.
yeah.
And so
But you were
whatever.
trying to do the right thing, sounds
I was trying
like.
to do the right thing, and that's
Yeah.
why I hate her. Let me back up. I didn't know her.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know her. Um, and so Detroit was okay, but it was sad because the city was sad and all that. But I had a great career going. I had a lot of good things doing. I graduated, got my MBA, and I thought I should be on Wall Street, man. I'm like great with numbers, this, that, and the other. I have an engineering degree in the wireless industry. I should be on Wall Street,
Mm.
but Wall Street didn't want me.
Well, what
They did
triggered
not.
that mindset? Like, of all the places, of all the opportunity, why Wall Street?
Well, you get an MBA. There's really anybody who's going to get an MBA to do anything other than banking, consulting, or high level financing, probably wasting their time. It is
Mm-hmm.
not a degree, although they promote it as a general degree for management. That is not what it's for. That's why people say I didn't get my return on my MBA because you didn't get the memo. It's not
Mm.
for that.
I feel like it's for the network
It's not even for that.
because
It's a
that's all I
gateway.
hear people talk about is the network.
Yeah, no, it's a path to high level, high paying careers for people who are young and type A and all this stuff. That's really what it's for.
Okay.
So it got commercialized as a degree. You could do this, get an advanced degree, get an MBA, gain all these valuable skills, and yes, and it gives you good skills in terms of how to run a business. Hence, I run my own business now,
Mm-hmm.
largely because I understand how marketing needs to work, how finance needs to work, how human resource needs to work, how all those things need to work. But that's still not what it's for. It's what my degree was for because I got it from Wayne State. And no
Mm-hmm.
restriction, I love Wayne State. Go Warriors. But I could have went to University of Michigan.
Mm.
That's a very different scenario, and it's a very different path.
Okay.
That's a top-notch program. I go to University of Michigan. Wall Street hires me like that. I go to Wayne State. I have to pack up my U-Haul like Kanye, move my family and my kids to New Jersey, and take a job doing what I'm already doing. You understand the difference? 95% of people end up like me in a U-Haul like Kanye. 5% of the people go to Wharton, go to Harvard, go to UVA, go to those schools, and they end up banking, investment banking, consulting, private equity, private credit. See the difference?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Well,
it's not just you get it and you're gonna get that big $150,000 job. That's not how it works. So
right.
I had to grind. So I took the long route. I went to because I thought I had a background. I had the background, but I didn't have the last piece of the pedigree. And people talk about my pedigree a lot. The last piece of the pedigree was I messed up when I chose my grad school. But
Yeah,
I
well, you
did that
chose
because
Wayne over University of
yeah,
Michigan as an
and
example.
and, and it wasn't because of money. I lived in there's a town called Troy, Michigan. It's about an hour and 15 minutes doing the speed limit or above from Ann Arbor.
Okay.
I had infant twins at home.
Mm.
And all I could think about is, I'm working all day, and then I'm going to be in school all night at University of Michigan. Also, MBA is not meant to do part-time. Contrary to what anyone would tell you, I'm telling you differently. False. Don't do that.
Jump right in. Do the just
You got it.
make.
It's all about opportunity cost. The reason you get paid 200,000 from a bank is because they are compensating you from taking that opportunity cost of foregoing salary for 2 years to go to a full-time program. To them, you've already demonstrated you're willing to sacrifice your
Mm.
own for something else. And so they reward you with a big salary and a big time job, and you skip 5 levels.
That's interesting. That sounds like a psychology. It
We'll get
sounds
into it later,
okay. Okay. Sorry.
but 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 that's real. I'm telling you. I'm just giving you my version of it,
Yeah,
and
like,
and
and I
that's
know some
real.
people that have completed it, and it's interesting. I'm like, the thing is almost. I'm not going to talk negative about it, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So so Wall Street didn't want me. I thought my telecommunication background. I worked at 3 telecoms. I had an engineering degree from Alabama. A good experience. That they will hire me on the research desk, calling telco. Right, there's a sector called telecommunication and technology. Is like one of those sectors, right? Um, that didn't happen. I didn't even get an interview for trading, sales, nothing. Right, I didn't get a single interview. So that's how I ended up just kind of quitting my job at AT&T, moving to New Jersey. Um, it was very unfamiliar. It's northeast. It was very cold. Not even like Detroit. It was like very different.
Yeah.
Housing was not as nice, but it was more expensive. And I was like, oh, that was a mistake. I felt like I had made a mistake. I was like,
Mm.
and I wasn't even working full time. I was working a contract. And so healthcare was a little shady. I had babies. It was really questionable. And I'm thinking, man, it's like when you start making bad decisions, you start compounding bad decisions,
Mm.
right? So I was trying to compensate for what I deemed a mistake in going the part-time MBA route at Wayne State by fixing it, by now getting this big glamorous job and doing all these things and correcting it, right? So I compounded it by moving to Jersey and taking
Okay.
a contract,
Okay.
but it worked out.
Okay.
I actually remember Mike Jones.
The rapper.
Yeah, what do you say? 213. See what the
Mm-hmm.
you know whoever the son back then. You didn't know me. Now I'm hot. You all on me.
That's right, Mike
Exactly what
Jones.
happened to me. Well, I did the contract at Merrill Lynch.
Okay.
It was a 6 month contract. I just did what I would have been doing in engineering. I did some code. I wrote some code. Blah blah blah. Worked on, and then boom. I put Merrill Lynch on my resume, and it was like back then they didn't know me. Now I'm hot. I literally had every bank on Wall Street. And, we got a job for you. We got a job for you. We have a job for you. We have a job for you. 6 months
That's
later.
all it took.
That's all it took.
Well, everything happens the way it's supposed to, then, right? Yours
So
may have taken a little longer than you wanted it to, but it worked
yeah.
out.
So I ended up taking a job at Barclays back when they were up in the and the rest is history in terms of my Wall Street career. That kind of kicked it off.
Mm-hmm.
and ended up working on the street for 19 years, different banks. JP. Now my pedigree looks like this. I worked at JP Morgan. I worked at UBS. I worked at Morgan Stanley. I worked at Macquarie, Australian Bank, the top Australian bank. Now that's the way my resume reads.
Yeah.
But it wasn't preordained. It was like grind and grit.
Yeah.
Uh, and each
Well,
one of
Wall
those,
Street is very competitive, though, right? It's like a
yeah, and it's even more competitive when you wanted the 1.5% or 3%,
right.
whatever they say we are now.
Yeah.
I never saw a person that looked like me in any of those rooms. I, you know, I I struggle not with that. I mean, I became. It doesn't matter if my name's Jose or Dre. I'm white, is what I thought, because no one else is. I mean, if they don't see me as whatever I am, I'm okay, right? I'm like I'm in there with them, like And yeah, things probably were a little bit hard on me moving up every position. I felt like I had to kind of grind a little bit more for to get promoted and do those things. But I did good work, and I ultimately got to a level where I felt very satisfied with that career.
So, look, now it's about to be an hour, so we're gonna have to go a little bit over. I hope Cooper's okay. Just a little bit because we have to tell the story about, why you do what you do. So, now we've heard the backstory, some of
Yeah,
it, because it gets deep. I
yeah,
already hear it's deep. So we
yeah,
got to uncover some things, but we're going to have to do it in another segment. But I will say this, like, we talked about, where you came from and, those cities right after, right? The education track, the path to Wall Street, but your title now, what you do. Tell us your actual title, and I know there's a backstory to that title, and I want you to share
yeah,
it because we've touched on it briefly on a Caffeine and Connections on a Friday, maybe a couple times we've mentioned it, right? Because
yeah,
you and I share a kind of a similar story as to why we do what we do. But I
yeah,
want you to, for one, tell everyone what you do as far as your
yeah,
title, and then the why behind it.
yeah. So what I would like to do is help people realize their dreams, to grow beyond even their own self-confined levels with their wealth, with their family, with aspirations. I want them to be able to protect their income. I want them to see a future that they couldn't even imagine. That's what I hope to do. What I do technically is advise them, financially advise them on how they do that, the steps they need to take, the plan they need to put together. That's what I do. But more than anything, I think for me and the way I met you and even you and the caffeine connections and SMI is I like to think I just build relationships with people, and I want to be that guy that's next to you, and you when you think about calling somebody about whatever it is, you think about calling me too, right? That's ultimately where I want to be. Like before you, oh hold on, let me check with Dre and see if that's cool, right? And it could be something you seemingly think that Dre ain't had nothing to do with this, but I still want you to think maybe I should call Dre and think about this because maybe there's an angle to it, right? When I've gotten to that level with people, I'll know I'm doing what I need to do because I'm deeply embedded in their life, and I'm fulfilling what I believe is my purpose to help them grow, grow their family, grow their wealth, grow their legacy, grow all those things, right? And there's multifaceted components to that. There's a lot of it's not as simple as people think. Most people think, oh, I just go buy a stock, I get lucky, and I make double my money or triple my money, and that's not what it is at all, right? Sometimes it requires a systematic approach and process to it. Sometimes it takes a little bit of patience, and it definitely involves thinking kind of holistically about what you're trying to do. What are you trying to do, and what are the things that you need to do underneath that to make sure that happens in that way? So, um, there was a couple things that kind of got me, you know, and I talked about I had three brothers, so there was one aspect of what I do, and so I am an insurance agent. I'm licensed to sell insurance as well, and I was kind of anti-insurance, right? Because of Wall Street and all the really what I wanted to do is manage money for people, um, and I came out of after my brother, and I'll come back to how my brother ties into this, but so when I was at JP Morgan, actually, um, I kind of still seeing the after effects of, And I think it was in 2018, the first Trump administration, and the market was booming. It was great. It was like whistling and singing, Yankee Doodle, singing Dixie, whatever you want to say. It was great. And we were introducing Bitcoin. Everything was, every day I remember watching the news on the screens. We had on the trading floor. Oh, the S&P sets a record high and every day. And I started looking around and thinking back to what happened back in 2007, 2008. So when I talked about my legacy, my career legacy, I skipped one company. I worked at Bear Stearns. For people who don't know what Bear Stearns was a company that's at the center of the housing crisis. So they say, right? I don't think you could pick a center, but you got to start somewhere. So Bear Stearns had two big hedge funds that collapsed because they were highly leveraged with subprime mortgages. You know, the type of mortgages where your credit is not good and
Yeah,
they'll give you a
subprime's
mortgage
the
anyway.
worst.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll give you a mortgage anyway. And people were leveraging subprimes to get one house, two house, three house, four house, five houses, renting them out, but not realizing we don't have a finite number of people. Like, who's gonna live in this fourth house that I have?
You
No
know,
one.
I have to say that yeah, I was doing a job the other day, a document job with a woman, and she got you know, her thing was hard money. I'm like, ain't nothing but a subprime mortgage.
Yes,
This is hard money loans.
hard money loan, the new subprime, right? I mean, it's like why are you doing that, right? And not the subprime was even, and you know this because you're like you said, we're closely linked in this area. The subprime was one thing, but they were adjustable on top of that,
Right. Oh gosh, yeah.
right? And so people say, well, you can get this teaser rate and you get in and it's fine, right? 3 years from now it'll adjust. Well, the country wasn't ready for the adjustment, the reset. And when that first reset period hit around 2007, the default rates were so high that the banks had to revalue all the underlying collateral.
Oof, yeah.
And that's what caused the housing crisis. Wasn't whatever someone told you on the media and the news, disregarded. That's false. It was the rating agencies forever had rated all this debt as good quality. It wasn't.
Yeah.
There was an overabundance in our government's ability to also back Fannie Freddie. That's how they became
Yeah.
private,
Yeah.
right? It was appraisers appraising houses for 110%, 20% over their actual value. It wasn't Wall Street that caused it. It was everybody. And it was the person who didn't read their documents and understand exactly what they were
I was
buying,
one of those people.
right?
I
So
was
it
one
was
of those people.
everybody.
I had, yeah, that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about
It
that
was
another
everybody.
time.
It was everybody. So who
I
was
was
I?
one
I
of
was the
them.
guy at Bear Stearns trying to explain to some other executives how do you lose $30 million a day because that's how much we were, you know, we were kind of losing in value in terms of P&L and things like that. People trying to get out of trades and so forth and so on. So fast forward, that all happened, and I mean, it impacted me in my career for quite a while. I didn't kind of come out of that period until 2011. And then I worked at Credit Suisse for a little while, private banking, private new business, did some stuff, and it was fine. The Swiss had taken a very prudent, like Swiss would always do, kind of risk averse type of position, so it was fine. And then, um, I landed at J.P. Morgan. But while I was at J.P. Morgan, still was so many people who didn't, and these are the people in some support areas. Your people that just not the big money makers, not the revenue generators, and even some of them though didn't understand certain products and certain things. But I would ask because I had kids, so I was like, the 529. They're like, what 529? I'm like, no, I don't know, Dad. What is that? Like,
Well, we got to talk about that too. That's a whole nother thing I wanted us to touch on if we
yeah,
have the time. But
yeah, it's like people didn't understand a lot of stuff, so I became really focused on educating.
yes,
Educating. And that's still the backbone of what I do right now. I
yes,
became so focused on educating. So I started doing trainings and stuff like that, long story short. And then I transitioned in away from JP Morgan. People say, why did you leave JP Morgan? Well, I'll drop another one for you to learn about now. Um, so our sweet Caroline,
mm-hmm.
she's an IVF baby. JP
Oh,
Morgan
interesting.
JP Morgan wouldn't cover the IVF treatments. So
Oh,
I quit JP Morgan and I
okay.
went to a company who would. And that's how I
Okay.
left JP Morgan. I love JP Morgan. Probably would have never, if that had not happened and we didn't want to have Caroline, I probably would have never left JP Morgan. I'll admit that. But that did
So,
happen. And
so
life
wait.
does happen. And I prioritized my family and growing my family over the job that I had, which was a great job.
So, as you're telling the story, there's a big gap, right? Because you talked about the first wife and how you didn't like her and how you had the sons. But now you're saying you had Caroline and your wife and your family. So, there's a gap that's missing that the people are going to hear, be like, wait a minute, I thought he didn't like his wife. Why is he
Uh,
making more children with his wife? So now
yeah, no,
you gotta tell
yeah,
that part of the story.
the first wife, it was about 10 years or whatever, and I gritted through it till my kids were old enough to where they could understand it. Your daddy loves you. I'm gonna be here to support you, but I can't live with this woman anymore.
Okay.
And so that's that story, right? And then met Melissa. Everything was great, and life was good, and we were going through. She was with me through the Credit Suisse and all these other jobs and so forth and so on. But we we thought we had time, like a lot of people, because we were very busy in our careers,
Yeah.
and we thought we had time. She was young, but we learned that 37 is geriatric in pregnancy years.
So they say, but I guess it is. You would know. I mean, y'all experienced it.
Yeah, I know more about egg count and egg quality and everything than I I care to know. Let me just tell you that. So I'm a math guy and I'm a science guy. So based on the science, I guess it is geriatric. And
Okay.
like if you, as a 7 or 8 year old, you have more eggs than you do as a 37 year
Of
old, which don't make sense,
course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, but anyway, I left JP Morgan. I go to UBS. They supported, and we went through that whole 2 3 year process. And lo and behold, the Lord blessed us with Caroline.
Oh, beautiful Caroline.
And then we got blessed with Cooper later, but that's a whole nother story.
No,
Um,
yeah.
but during that time between that transition, UBS, JP Morgan, UBS, I realized and I started my company, Banknotes Wealth Management, and I thought, whew, I need a company for blacks and Latinos. My name is Jose. Let me just cover both of them because we are dire in terms of where we are, comparatively speaking, against other races and other people. It was bad. It is still bad. And it became my purpose to educate, to give access, and to assist people to uplift themselves, right? Um, and it was hard, and we went through 2019 was good, started with a lot of momentum, and I thought we were going well, and then COVID.
Right.
Because my whole idea was in person, getting people together, have these chapters, multinational, multi-city chapters. People build these clubs, similar to what KC has done with SMI. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just one chapter in St. Petersburg. There should be a SMI in Baltimore. There should be a SMI in Jersey. There should be a SMI in Chicago. There should be a SMI. Think about all the people we haven't touched yet.
Right. Thank goodness for virtual where you can have different people from different places coming to, one platform.
Yes, and that was the silver lining from COVID that we were able to get Zoom and virtual. Because I was thinking, because Zoom wasn't a big thing before COVID, so
Right.
I
I
was
remember.
thinking in person, and we would invite speakers and guest speakers um, and experts in the field in personal finance, and you have a value for your membership in this club, right? And you will learn and you will grow and you start small and you pool your money with everybody else and you start small and then you kind of graduate into what I do now, which is advising.
Mm-hmm.
Because I personally think everybody should have a financial advisor, no matter what they think I don't have the money, hogwash. Everyone should have a financial advisor, no
Yeah.
matter how much money you have. You
Well,
need advice and planning.
I mean, let's talk about that briefly because I mean, for those out there, including myself, that's a good part of educating because the person might think, okay, well, I don't have any assets or I just have my job, I live paycheck to paycheck. You have all these different scenarios that people might be in. Tell us why having a financial advisor is beneficial.
Because you have goals, don't you? Now, if you came to me and you say, I don't have no goals, I don't have a future. Then I'm saying, well, maybe if you don't have goals and you don't think you have a future, then you don't need a financial advisor because you're living for the here and now, today. That's
Okay.
it. That's all you focus on. then I say yes, you don't need a financial advisor.
So a
But if you
person
have
that has goals and is looking to do something with their money or just in life, right? Is that what
in
you're
life,
saying?
in their future, because you know, if people say, well, I don't have this, I'm not married, I don't have no kids. You have nieces, you have nephews, you have charity, you have church, you have family, you can build legacy in different ways. And it all, last time I checked, it's all part of your family and a part of your community. All that's still important.
Yes.
And if you, unless you plan on working for the rest of your life, you probably need a plan now so that you have something in place in the event that things don't go the way we think they're gonna go. I.e., people say, "Well, I'm gonna get Social Security. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that," or they don't have no idea what they're gonna do in 20 years. Especially young people. So young people are real champs because they seem to think that they're invincible, and they, again, are so focused on what's in front of them right now, they completely forget that one day they're gonna be gray, and one day they're gonna be older. One day they may have grandkids, and one day they may have a health disability or something like that. That requires planning.
I
You have
think
to
it's a
plan for the
mindset shift,
unexpected.
right? There has to
Yeah,
be a mindset shift to the young people because I think about myself in my 20s. I wish I did have someone like a you in my 20s saying, "Hey, what is your plan for 30, 40, 50?" Because it may
yeah,
be the preparation. I do feel like there's a mindset shift that needs to happen. What do you target these demographics and you know what what's
yeah.
that
I,
like?
I, I haven't. I can't say I specifically target them from the age one because it is a hurdle. But I want to. I want to focus on those younger that after college. Like I know some people in my business, they hang out at the residencies for medical
Hmm.
students. You know why they do that? Because they may have no money right now and 300,000 student loans, but you know what they're gonna have one day? A big salary, kids, things to take care of, things of that nature. So life is not a moment in time, right?
Yeah.
It's not right now. It's all those things. And if anyone young, think about it. You think about a young doctor, and that should be your same ideal for yourself. Is that okay? I may not be in a position right now, but my future is not my present,
Hmm.
right? So how do I prepare for my future? How do I
Right.
lay the foundation and the groundwork to be okay or better in my future? And
Yeah.
that's the piece that people really need to start thinking about.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I'm glad we touched on that. Um, I was as you were talking, I was thinking about all the different people that work in trades. Like, yeah, you have doctors, but then you also have truck drivers. You have, you know,
Yeah,
uh, construction workers.
yeah.
I mean, these people make pretty good money too. It's just
They do,
like,
and
yeah.
they're largely they're that population. When I was thinking about my club and originally starting this and thinking about who I would help, those are largely people. Um, they're frustrating actually.
Mm,
They are frustrating because they are people who probably need assistance and advice more than the person who has assets.
mm-hmm.
But because it requires a complete mind shift and them removing schemas in their mind and different things that they envision and what they envision a person would have find they you know they need to read the Millionaire Next Door. That's just a blue collar average person that just does the right thing over and over and over and make the right decision and they become the millionaire. And
Is that a title of something?
that is the book. That's one of my favorite books. I don't have it here. It's called A Millionaire Next Door. It's
Okay,
a
the
it's a
Millionaire
it's an
Next
older
Door.
book, but it is a must read. It
Okay.
is a must read to help with that mindset shift because you get to realize and think about the millionaire is actually probably right next door to the truck driver, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
He just has to change some little things around how he thinks about money, how he views the future, how he go and plan and do goal set and plan and things like that. Because
Yeah.
that is a reality.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, Fidelity tracks 401k millionaires. It's a number that they track all the time. Now, just based on the numbers, and I think they break down salary. The average salary of the average 401k millionaire is not what you would think,
Mm.
right? There's several of those people in those households and that number that are well below $100,000. You're saying, how did
Interesting.
they become a millionaire? Well, because they did the same thing over again consistently over time without fail.
So did
It,
those people work with an advisor, or they just put more money in their 401k, or what does
a
that
lot
look
of those
like?
people didn't work on their money, but they knew they didn't. They could still use an advisor, but they knew somewhere around the line they got somewhere, and someone had told them, put the money in your retirement plan and just don't touch it. Just get away, right? But do it consistently, and no matter what, think about it. Because a lot of times people do things like take money out of their retirement, pay for their kids' college. No, I mean you could do that, and that's fine as an
Right.
advisor, I would say. But doing that is doing what? It's commingling college saving with retirement savings. Those are two separate things. You
And
should
that's
have
where
a
you
college
promote
savings,
529.
529s or UTMA or any other account for your kid versus your retirement plan. Your retirement plan is your retirement plan. It is
Mm-hmm.
not a slash, let me reconstruct my house plan, slash, let me pay for my kids' college. Oh, let me pay for private school plan. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not those things. If you want to grow it, you got to be very, very stubborn and monotonous about your saving exclusively for your retirement.
What about those people who have single incomes that might be making, let's say, under six figures, and they're paying rent. They're not paying a mortgage, right? The rent is probably close to $2,000 a month because the economy is crazy and rent is high. Like people like that. Like, I mean,
Start, start again. I say the same thing. Start with what you can afford, consistently and over time, and
mm-hmm.
it'll still work out. Because if those are the people and they're young enough, they have enough time. Time is our friend. Compounding, you know this. I've talked about this over and over.
Compound
Compound
interest.
interest is the eighth wonder of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That is our friend. So do something consistent over time. And now you may need to do it more time if you have less money,
Mm-hmm.
but if you do it, you will get there.
So the younger the better. So we'll
Young and
say single young mothers, not, I mean, older young mothers probably too, but they don't have as much time as the single young mothers.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or fathers. I don't want to just say women. Just say
or fathers.
or
Yeah,
fathers.
and we have and again another segment because we're approaching an hour and a half
I
now. But
know. Right,
uh,
right, right.
another you knew I was going to be a talker. So hey, I'm putting this on edge,
Listen,
everybody.
but it's part of the
Um,
story. We want to hear the story.
um, my young fathers and my fathers and my men in general, much more of a challenge.
Mm.
And I don't know what that's all about. I would say lose the ego if it's about that. I'll equate it like this, and I'll close on this note. I talk about a lot of analogies, um, but let's just take the mechanic analogy, right? Are you trying to fix your own car? Are you trying to rebuild your alternator, put timing belts, or when we had all that stuff? No, you were not. Down. Think about when I was doing that, and we had belts and all this stuff. You were not doing that. You were taking it to a person who was skilled, prepared, trained to do that. When you get sick and you think, oh man, I may have my appendix taken out, were you cutting yourself open and trying to take your own appendix out? You were going to a person who was trained and skilled to do that. When you were thinking about even something as simple, right? You may be thinking about, oh, okay, I want to get my hair done, but I don't want to do it myself. I'm going to a wedding. You probably go to a trained, skilled person to do your hair for the wedding. But when it comes to skilled professional advisors, that's what I do for a living. I'm no different from any other those other professions. Podiatrist, a lawyer, if I have a legal man, that is what I do. Now it's possible that you could do it decent or as good, right? But last time I checked, that's like saying I can heal myself as good, as decent as a doctor. It is no different.
Mm.
And people need to wrap their head around that one. Is that I do it 12 hours a day. You're trying to do it in 30 minutes to an hour a day. Let's see which one you think is going to result in a better result.
What do
And
you
that's
say to
why,
the?
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said that's why I think that for me, that's a big hurdle. I think young men and men in general, they can get caught up in I could do it myself type of thing.
Yeah.
You don't have the access to the tools. You don't have access to the same research. You don't have access to the conversations. You don't have maybe even the historical experience.
Mm.
I just don't think practically it's possible.
Yeah. That's
Ninety
good.
percent of people who invest on their own lose money. 90%.
Well, I
over
know you
time.
said we were going to close on that, but I will ask one last question. I really had two, but well, let's say two. What do you say to the people who are just ashamed of their fiscal history and the habits? What do you say to those people to encourage them to still seek your professional
Yeah.
services?
Yeah, I would say there's nothing to be ashamed of. And this is the other thing. I'll use a doctor. Just like a doctor, you have client doctor privileges and anonymity. You have the same thing there with your advisor. Your advisor is someone you should confide in. They're not there to judge you. I'm not there to judge you, right? I'm there to help you, right? So there's no judgment, and you don't do yourself any favor by continuing to wait and wait because there's a cost to waiting.
Mm.
There's a cost of waiting. The best thing you do is just clear it out. The past is past. Just get started at that moment, right? We all have time. We have a catastrophic, very positive shift that's about to happen in our lives, our technology, our economy, and you're right at the beginning of it. Is what I would tell that person. So just get started.
Yeah. And I think hearing your history and hearing your backstory is definitely going to resonate with some people. Especially people that look like us, people can resonate with it and feel more comfortable where they say, you know what, let me holler at this man because he has a story.
Yeah,
He's been some places, he sees some things. And clearly, where you are now, helping other people, especially our Caffeine and Connections members that have come to you. I mean, come to you for your services, but also gotten a chance to build that relationship with you where
yeah,
they come
friendship,
to your house,
friendship, yeah,
have
friendship.
traveled to you.
Yeah, that's friendship, and that's the most precious piece of it, right? That friendship, and like I said, when I said it, what I do, I like to say that I build deep relationships and connections with people. So
Yeah.
the Caffeine Connections was ordained for me to join this because that's what I see myself as a connector, and that connection piece is very very important. It's the most critical piece to me is that connection. So um, the numbers and the zeros and ones and all that's great, and I want to make everybody money and take care of their finances and take care of all those different things. But that connection piece of it, that's the most important thing because I want that trust and that faith and that belief that I'm always gonna have your best interest at heart,
Yes.
and that's
And I,
the most
and
important thing.
and I think that that's the one thing as Caffeine Connections members, we know this, right? Those who show up. We want other people to be able to understand this too. So we welcome them to join us on Fridays, right? At 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern
Absolutely.
time. How can people find you though? If they don't come to Caffeine and Connections, how can they find you on social or email, phone number?
Yeah, and actually, you can Google Dre Martin or Jose Martin Advisor, and you find me that way. Actually, either one is funny. You'll find me. The LinkedIn is a great way to find me, or you can go to Edward Jones. I'm now broker to Edward Jones. I'm an advisor to Edward Jones. You could go to Edward Jones' website and do a search for Jose Martin. You'll find me that way. My email address, I don't know if we have a way to post it. It's really simple. It's Jose.Martin. Yes, I'm using Jose. Jose.Martin at edwardjones.com. You can email me, reach out. You can call me. Um, you can call my office, and actually I have a new office number, but you actually can call my office, text me at 973-828-7477. So
And where is that located?
Florham Park, New Jersey. Florham Park, New Jersey.
And you are
Hopefully it's a little
licensed in
temporary
all
space.
states still though, right?
Yeah, all states. I'm licensed in all states, ready and willing to help people in all states.
Awesome. Y'all heard it here on our Caffeine and Connections. Highlight number 3, Mr. Jose Dre Martin. It has been such a pleasure speaking to you, sir. I am looking forward to part 2 because we have to have a part 2 to this conversation. We have got to cover relationships. That's one thing that
Okay.
is near and dear to my heart because that's part of, we hear Shannon talk about the traumas and the triggers and the
Yeah.
things that, you know, the things pretty much where we come from, right? From the
Yeah.
past in our own personal experiences. So we got to tackle that. So anyway,
Absolutely.
that's part 2.
Absolutely. Well, I'm here. You know where to find me.
All right. Well, thank y'all for listening and hope you join us again for our next Caffeine Connections highlight. Dre, again, it's been a pleasure. And
Pleasure.
let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Angie. I appreciate everything